It's time. The DPS tier list. PvE, DPS tier list. Group PvE tier list. When you're surrounded by your friends, you're blasting, you're pumping. My least favorite tier list by far. And I think I am going to try and do this a little bit differently. We're going to be a bit scattershot, then I'll refine it. What I'm going to do is we're going to throw the builds on that I think are really good, and maybe we'll jiggle it around afterwards. However, I will say this before anyone gets angry. This will be my least precise tier list. And I'm actually going to contextualize this why. So, 1, everything's actually pretty damn good, and most of your, and there's pretty much any DPS mode is going to be perfectly fine, and actually perform really well if you play it well. 2, most of the heavy lifting in group building, so, you know, I'm going to put together a squad, I'm going to go do a raid, or do an open world meta event, or do a strike mission, or do a fractal. Most of the heavy lifting is in your supports. It kind of doesn't matter that much what DPS you pick, because they're all pretty good. And all they've got to do is do damage most of the time. So, and of course, it's very situational. Like, some builds work better on different bosses, right? Like, some builds, like, struggle a little bit more on different encounters, right? So, you know, whatever. So, this is not going to be a precise tier list. This is going to be me saying, I think these builds are awesome, versus like, yeah, these ones are pretty good, and, yeah, these ones could use a little bit of work, in my opinion. So this is not going to be a super precise, accurate tier list. This is going to be just a little bit of the builds that I think are really strong and are really useful. Not quite as analytic as the other ones, because I think it's actually impossible to analyze it. It's too situational, and just the way the game works, it almost barely makes sense to rate things in this way when it comes to DPS because of the nature of the game. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. And let's just throw some good builds in there. So, usual suspects. Scourge is really good. We'll go over why, and we'll talk about this. Vindicator, I think, is exceptionally good as well. I think Weaver and Catalyst are extremely good currently at the same time. Reaper, hell yeah, that build is awesome. Insanely good. Soulbeast is insanely good currently. Let's see. Are we putting anything? Would I put anything else in the I really like this build quite a lot tier? I think that'll do for now. Then if we go down to the kind of A tier stuff that I think is really good, I think I would put Berserker in there, actually. Condidra, yeah, I think I'd put Condidra. Oh, I forgot Virtuoso. How could I do that? What is wrong with me? Yeah, okay. It was hiding. It was hiding on the right side of my screen, okay? Listen, it was hiding. So there we go. Condidra is arguably an S tier. It's... I'm not a huge fan of the build, to be honest. But anyway, we'll get into the weeds in a moment. We'll get into the weeds in a moment. Spellbreaker is definitely going to be an A tier, in my opinion. Holo is A tier for sure. Harb, I think, is actually very good. Probably Daredevil as well. Yeah, Daredevil. Yep. Ooh. This is what I mean. This is where things get really tricky, actually. This is where things get really, really, really spicy. Bladesworn, this will be a surprise rating to many of you. I think this would really suffered with Soto. It suffered more than I actually anticipated. I think I rated this a little bit too highly last time. This build is extremely niche now. It's very good on specific encounters where you really need that colossal burst damage, but it really just did not benefit. Warrior in general struggled a little bit. You'll notice that Spellbreaker is not in S tier, and this is because Warrior just simply did not benefit that much from Weapon Master training. And Relics didn't help. Relics kind of hurt Bladesworn, if anything, actually. It really did not... It did not come out well out of that, let me tell you. So that's why this is going on there as well. Yes. Okay. Let's see. I kind of... let me change the tiers here as well. I think it's going to be S+, S tier, A, like previously. Because I'm going to have to put some stuff in here, and calling Bladesworn B tier just honestly feels wrong, right? It just doesn't feel right to me, guys. It doesn't feel right. I think in A tier as well... Oh, man, how are we going to do this? I think we're going to slap... I think Renegade is S tier. I think I'm going to downgrade Daredevil. I think Firebrand is going to be here. Chronomancer is going to be in A tier. Yeah, Chrono is going to be in A tier as well. I think Tempest is going to be an A tier. Willbender is going to be an A tier. I think Specter is going to be an A tier. Scrapper, I think, is going to be... Oh, no, Scrapper's in B tier. Herald's also in B tier, unfortunately. Dragonhunter. Where is DH going to go? Oh, yeah, Deadeye is in B tier. Mirage might actually be like... Mirage is so weird. Where do I even put this anymore? I'll put it in B for now. I think Mirage mains will say it should be in absolute dumpster land. But we'll put it in B for now. It is not looking good. It's a little bit rough out there, guys. It's rough. It absolutely is. I think Dragonhunter is actually good. Dragonhunter is... It's A tier at worst. I think at worst it's going to be an A tier here, I think. Untamed. Nah, it's not that good, let's be honest. And Mech. Condi Mech is good. But it's... I wouldn't say it's exceptional. Maybe I'll give Mech an A. The power build really lets it down, obviously. Like, Power Mech is not that good. Colony Mech is pretty good. It's pretty good. But it's not that bad. Now, let's kind of go through this. Let's actually go ahead. We've done the rapid-fire tier list, and I'm going to go through it, and I'll see if anything is just completely off, and I'm completely unhinged. So, Scourge. It's ranged. It can revive people. It does a bunch of damage. Did get nerfed, but not that bad, right? Exceptionally good. Very high DPS, high utility, high value. I am never sad to see a Scourge. Vindicator is actually a bit of the... a rising star, I think. It's a build that was kind of bubbling under the surface for a little bit, I think, because it was just like, it doesn't quite do enough to be value, but hey, a lot of it, what it was competing with, got nerfed, right? A lot of the builds got nerfed, and this build rose up from the ashes. I think this build is exceptionally good right now, because it does fantastic damage, can package in Chalice for utility very easily, it's bursty, it's power damage, it's tanky. Very good build, actually. Very, very strong. One of the best power builds right now, I think, for group PvE. Catalyst and Weaver, we've kind of seen this before, right? Like, we've seen this before. We know what this is. It's Ellie. Ellie loved, absolutely loved Weapon Master training with Sword and Warhorn being shared all over the place now. One of the biggest winners, actually. The biggest winners overall. And... as a result of that, it is very good. Very high damage. Very, very good. It's getting tankier. Every patch, they're making these builds tankier, by the way. You know, we're going to get to the point, guys, where Ellie, like Weaver and Kata are actually like monsters. They're going to be tankier than Warrior, you know, soon. If we keep going at this rate. Again, it's very good. Good burst damage. Good CC on the Weaver in particular. And some like free boons on Catalyst. Always a welcome sight, in my opinion. A well-played Catalyst is always good. Reaper. Honestly, do I really need to say that much about this build? Honestly, this build has got to go up. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I love Reaper. It's so good. It's so strong. Like, the changes they made, especially to Shroud 3, is... ooh! Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Woo, yeah. You just have... 50% damage reduction added onto Enshroud. You have self-stability on Shroud 3. You can get stability on your Elite Shout as well. Has mega AoE, mega CC, mega everything. This is... yes. It literally is Power Scourge. You don't need Power Scourge to this when you have Reaper. Its only weakness is that it is, of course, a full melee build most of the time. You can, Staff is still good. I think a lot of builds are running, like, Dagger Torch these days for, like, max DPS. To be honest, though, Staff is still good. I kind of like Staff. It's because I play PvP, guys, okay? I play PvP. I like the Staff weapon. Soulbeast, again, very similar story to Weaver and Kata. It's just one of those old faithfuls. It just hasn't really gone away. Its damage profile is what really helps it, of course, with the Soulbeast. Is that it's very burst-oriented, which is very favorable in Guild Wars 2 encounters, kind of similar to our Elementalist builds. Like, they're bursty, right? Same as, well, honestly, a lot of these, actually. It's very good for that reason. And it just does a good job. You can play Sword on this. You can play Axe as well. Personally, I am not a big Sword enjoyer. I think Axe Soulbeast is really good. There's way less force movement, way less animation locking if you're playing with Axe, and it's not the end of the world in terms of DPS. But yeah, one of the old faithfuls, to be honest. It's just consistently good and still remains that way. Condi Soulbeast is good too, by the way. Don't see that one nearly as much, but it's actually very good. And Virtuoso. Standard stuff here, guys. Standard stuff. We all know it, guys. Powervert actually has fallen off a fair bit, to be fair. But Condivert is still one of the tip-top builds in the game, to be honest. It's got it all. It's similar to Scourge. It's Pink Scourge, right? You have fantastic utility, all the Mesmer good stuff. You can portal, you can stability, you can blink all over the place, you can distort yourself, right? You're fully ranged. It's just good. Heals itself, has good CC. Just an all-around great package, right, in terms of a build is Condi Virtuoso. Power is still playable. You'll mostly see it pop up on HTCM, obviously. But yeah, Condivert, really, really good build overall right now. So that's kind of like S tier explained, in my opinion. Next is going to be S tier. Berserker. This build does a lot of damage, and it's kind of just almost like your quintessential DPS build, to be honest. It is also just very naturally tanky. You're playing Warrior. You have a trait that gives you more vitality. You already have high health and high armor. Your heal skill is going to full heal you, basically, in your rotation. You know, whenever you use it, it's going to make you immortal for a while. Just a solid all-round damage choice, in my opinion. It does lack a little bit in utility. Like, you can take War Banner. You're not going to be happy about it, but you could do it. I think that next patch, this is going to get massively improved. Again, we'll talk about that in my speculative tier list, but it is a very, very strong build overall. This hits really hard. So, honestly, similar to Condi Druid. Condi Druid, bit of a pumper. A bit of a pumper build overall. Hits very hard. Does its thing. It does exactly what it says on the tin. A lot of these builds are kind of similar to this, right? Like Spellbreaker. I'm a big Spellbreaker fan, actually. I feel like the only reason I actually wouldn't put Spellbreaker in S tier is because it actually struggles with functionality in some places. There are some places where the build just doesn't work. I think the really notable one is where Magebane Teller just instantly snaps on Conjured Amalgamate in the raid encounter. I'd say that if you think about like an open world DPS build, I'd say Spellbreaker is like Giga S tier alongside Reaper for the same reason. Very good stability access. This build basically gives itself very high stability uptime while also doing excellent damage and having a really robust amount of tankiness. However, for kind of all group PvE, I think its damage profile is a little bit less favorable compared to especially the stuff in a lot of the power builds in S tier, and it just has some actual functionality issues, which doesn't work properly on a couple of encounters, which really sucks. Notably, it doesn't work on structures properly, right? And that sucks, which is no good. Some of it does, right? Like yeah, I don't think it works on HTCM actually either. But yeah, I don't know. Bit of it feels bad. Holosmith, you know, there's honestly not much to say about this Holosmith, really. It's just a really solid build. A big community favorite, in my opinion, in terms of what it can bring to the table. Really fun build to play. Hits very hard. Pretty sustainable, actually, on that as well. It's got good mobility. You know, it's good at handling fights. It's good at navigating encounters, in my opinion. It's always been a build that's good at that. And it continues to do that. Yeah, it's not much to say. It's just good. Harbinger, this is kind of Scourge. It's like a de-Scourged version of Scourge, honestly. Like, just all-out damage. So I think it doesn't really have the value of its kind of bigger and better Necromancer buddies up here in S+, but it's a fun build to play, and it hits very hard. So one of the stronger Condi options. Renegade is actually really cool. I'd say it's kind of comparable to Harbinger. It just does a shit ton of damage. This one has a bit more utility package into it. I think the color toolkit is actually really cool. Actually, the color toolkit is so much fun because you can heal your allies, you can give them lifesteal, you have some really good CC options there. It's a half-range build too, because you're going to be short bow and you have your mace in your other set. So you actually do have a ranged component, and any build like that is always going to be heavily advantaged in any kind of group PvE. It's really good to be ranged. That's it. Oh, Specter's got to go. What was I thinking? I just saw that I put Specter in A tier. That is That is a little embarrassing, guys. Yeah, Specter is absolutely an S-tier build. I was almost like thinking, why is it missing here? Where is it? I forget to move it up. This is just a very, very good build. The weakness that it does have is that it doesn't have as much cleave AoE potential as a lot of other builds, but often that doesn't matter. You know, if you're fighting a big world boss, it's not the end of the world. If you're fighting a raid boss or a strike mission boss, a lot of the time that's not the end of the universe. But this build is very, very good. This is for the DPS Specter. It's surprisingly bursty for a Condi build as well. Like, Thief actually has this edge in terms of its Condi builds over a lot of other Condi builds, in that it is very burst-oriented, because you have the Venom application. You can ramp pretty damn quickly on this build, which is really good. It is very, very good indeed. And then we got onto the A-tier stuff. And let's see if anything is going to move here. You know, I was talking to Emmy earlier, if she was in the chat, and you know, oh man, Chrono is pretty good right now. Like, does it deserve to be here in A tier? I kind of think it does, to be honest. I feel like it does. I've heard some rumblings about Condi Chrono next patch, actually, which might be interesting. But Power Chronomancer, and this is a pretty good build. It's a pretty good build, isn't it? I'll leave it in A tier though. Like, look, I feel like Mesmer mains, they're the kind of player who likes to be oppressed. That you guys like being in A tier. I know you do. You know what? Do you guys know why there isn't a Mirage post on Reddit every single day? It's because, you know what? Mirage players want me to do this. This is what they want. They want this to be Mirage tier. The absolute bottom of the barrel dog shit spec. Rat piss spec. That's what they want. But anyway, A tier, very robust builds. I think DPS Firebrand is actually, these are not ordered, by the way. We're just kind of slapping them in there. Like, it's too hard to kind of make the differentiation. DPS Firebrand, one of the most consistently underrated builds out there, because it has sword damage and has just good all-round utility attached to it. Not exceptional. It's certainly not a build that is going to completely blow your mind, but it's kind of got that Guardian to it. Like, Guardian is almost like capped at A tier or above, just because of how good the utility skills are. It's like hard to imagine a universe where any Guardian build could actually be bad, simply because of the value that they can bring to the table. And this is kind of the same story. We can kind of do all the Guardian specs at once here. Talking about Firebrand, DH, and Willbender. They do good damage. Like, they actually do very respectable damage, actually. I think, especially Willbender, actually, hits pretty hard. With power, and DH is also over 40k as well, and has some really good defensive potential. One thing to look at with Dragonhunter is they've been very consistently reducing the cooldown on the virtues, on your block and the F2, and I think that's a really good change for Dragonhunter. The one thing I don't like, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I was doing a bit of a review for this. I was preparing for the tier list, and I was playing a lot of different specs, just messing around in some open world and some strike missions. And I found myself playing Longbow Dragonhunter, and I was thinking, what the hell is this? Why am I getting animation locked on 2 and 5 on Longbow? I was like, this is horrible. They made Greatsword a lot better. I was like, man, I want to play Sword on this build. I am done with this Longbow trash almost immediately. Maybe that's just me, though. So I think there's some playability issues with DH that kind of make it kind of unfun sometimes. It's not the end of the world, but I don't know. I don't like it that much. I think Willbender kind of handles this a little bit better. But yeah, it's DH, unimpressed. Unimpressed, guys. Okay, but anyway, that's how it is. We talked about Bladesworn a little bit previously, and again, I just think it's fallen into a very niche role currently. Expect to see this rise when it has a proper relic that it can use, yeah, and there you go. Expect to see that. It'll be very exciting, I'm sure. You know, we're all waiting with bated breath. Thief. Daredevil, this is just one of those ones that is pretty niche. Where it's good, it's really good, and everywhere else, it's like, oh yeah, all right, you know, Daredevil, pretty good. Damage got increased a lot recently, of course, with the staff changes, so it's very respectable DPS. On some encounters, it can really bring a lot of value to the table. Of course, some of that really OP utility was nerfed, like the Ecto stuff. was nerfed down. Like, a lot of the damage on some of the stolen skills in instance content got reduced. But it's just a pretty solid pick overall right now. Again, I do think it suffers with this a little bit. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the amount of animation locks on this build. And playability is important, especially when it comes to play rates. So it is what it is overall. I think Tempest players might be surprised to see this. But DPS Tempest has actually got a lot better, I think. It has been improved significantly over the last couple of patches. I think the big one that happened is they made Transcendent Tempest the Grand Master trait. They just slapped an extra 10% damage on it, I think, which has just made this into a pretty damn solid build at this stage. Of course, Weapon Master training really helped too, because now you can have Sword, and Sword is pretty much your go-to DPS weapon on anything Elementalist these days. So that really helped out, because you kind of combine the Weaver and the Tempest almost at that stage. And yeah, here you go. DPS Tempest. Very, very nice indeed. I love to see it. Incredible stuff. And Mech. Yeah, you know, Mech. Yeah, I just don't find myself impressed by Mech, to be honest. Power Mech it's alright. You know, it's alright. Very reliable build, not the highest damage in the universe, but yeah, whatever. Condi Mech, yeah, it's alright, but I feel like it's a bit of a do-nothing build, to be honest, on Condi Mech, you know? And do-nothing builds, I'm not impressed by do-nothing builds, and Condi Mech is that. Is it cozy to play? Does it do some decent DPS? You're absolutely right, yeah, but I don't think there's nothing about it that really shines, really impresses me. Overall. It's definitely good in the same way that Scourge is. Scourge is great when you have uptime problems and there's a lot of movement in the fight, or when the boss kind of buffers itself with an AoE, and you know you can't properly attack it, and Mech can shine there too. But yeah, it's kind of like Scourge, but not as degen. You know, that's what it is. Okay, B tier. These builds, I'm a little bit sad about these. Okay, you know, before I did this tier list, do you know what I was excited to do? I was excited to put this build, okay, in A tier. The Herald mains convinced me. And also, I thought it was pretty good. It was doing 41k DPS last patch while also spewing out some boons. I thought, wow, that's actually pretty good. But then, what do I learn, guys? What do I learn? Unfortunately, Greatsword got nerfed. And the build that actually got completely caught in the crossfire, yep, you guessed it, it was DPS Herald. So DPS Herald actually went from a really exciting 40k build down to down to 36k. Oh no! you hate to see that. You really hate to see it. Yeah. This build barely does more damage than Quickness Herald and doesn't give quickness. The only reason you would play this is if you misclicked and you picked the wrong trait by accident. It's a 4k DPS gain over not giving any quickness and way less might out, and just like way worse boon application. This build is it's unfortunately not good. Stay tuned for next patch though, I guess. Scrapper. This is just another one of those ones that's just not quite good enough. Its damage is, I believe, around 37, 38k. And it's better than Herald. Holy shit, it's better than this. It almost deserves to be promoted to A tier, I feel like. It almost does. Its damage profile's good. Oh, I'm kind of talking myself into it now. Ooh. Oh, man, I'm not sure about that. It's because it's unkillable. It's got good CC, decent damage profile, can res people, and can do super speed as well a little bit here and there. Oh. Does it deserve to be A tier? Maybe relative. Ooh. Yeah, it's better than this. Untamed might need to get promoted as well, actually, because Untamed's better than this. Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah. And A tier is extending, guys. A tier is just extending out into the distance, as we can see here. Yeah, Scrapper has to be here. Its damage isn't amazing, but I definitely think it makes up for it in other ways. It's very robust little build. It's going to be good next patch, actually. Untamed. This build has good DPS, but that's it. And no matter how many times Trig bribes me, it's never going up, guys. This is, it's just insubstantial. I don't think it's very impressive. It's not that good. It's imagine if Soulbeast and Druid were just nowhere near as exciting. Then you've got Untamed. Let's go! And then Deadeye. Deadeye is one of those builds. People get baited, okay? Deadeye, if I was teaching a lecture on how you need to interpret not just the benchmark number, but also how that benchmark works and what the build can actually do in a real fight, Deadeye would be my first example. Like, if you want to stay in the target dummy arena and do rotations all day, Deadeye is literally the best spec in the game. Seriously, it is. We love it. Okay, it's great. But if you actually want to play, it's honestly not, it's not that good. An amazing player in a group that is making sure the Deadeye is kind of wrapped up in cotton wool, honestly, you can do pretty well. But I think for general usage, I don't think this build is really going to do that much. I don't think the performance is really going to be, you know, it's not going to be worth it, to be honest. And could it be good? Absolutely, 100%. It definitely can. But it's not good in enough environments, in my opinion, to give it like a particularly high score in terms of its damage output, to be frank. That's the story of Deadeye. Could be good, isn't there yet. This doesn't really have, you know, it can't really cleave well. It can do CC, right? It's very melee, very short range. It's very squishy. Gets disrupted incredibly easily, actually. It's one of those builds. Almost every build in the game doesn't get screwed over by stuff happening as much as Deadeye. Like, Deadeye gets absolutely shafted by stuff going wrong, which, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm unimpressed. I'm unimpressed, guys. Okay, and that is the end of that. Maybe I'd actually say it's better than Herald, because Herald barely even qualifies as a DPS build at this point, so we'll do that there. And Mirage, I will actually talk seriously about Mirage. Mirage has just always been this weird spec. It's always been weird, because it has been so focused around doing amazing damage with confusion. And are there still fights where Mirage can do well? Yes. There are. It's still going to do well on something like Soulless Horror. It absolutely will. But, yeah. Confusion was pretty important, and it doesn't have that anymore, guys. It doesn't have it. It is gone. It has left us. It has departed away. And as a result of that, Mirage has also departed. Will it return next patch? I don't know. I guess we'll find out then. It's going to be very exciting. But for now, Mirage just goes in weird tier. It's just one of those builds that needs a patch almost like dedicated to it to like really bring it back into the game. Pretty much nobody plays Mirage. All Mirages have gone back into their Mirage cave. In fact, Mirage gameplay is the following. You don't even play the game. You just look at a spreadsheet and cry. That's actually all you do currently. And you know what? If you're into that, that's fair enough. It's good to have a little bit of variety, and for players who are looking for that experience, Mirage is there for you. There you have it. Very nice. Very, very nice indeed. Yeah. But there it is. I think that's the DPS tiers. Again, hopefully you kind of got the idea with what I was trying to express here. You know, this one is definitely one you'd really take with a grain of salt. This one is certainly one that you want to kind of listen to what I actually said and how we talked about these builds and talk about the general power level of some of the stuff rather than viewing it as like, oh yeah, this is like a very strict order, because this is a very situational tier list, and the hardest one to do in my opinion. In fact, I think it's not even possible to do because of the way the game works. Like almost impossible to actually rate these things in how they actually operate because of this, the way the meta is right now, because of the way the game is. And just the nature of the DPS role in Guild Wars 2 is like very mushy, very, very squidgy compared to the support ones. The support ones are much easier to rate because it's much more defined, kind of what you want out of those builds. Whereas DPS, a little bit sus. Yeah, I'm not rating the core stuff this time around because this tier list doesn't have core, because the person who made it despises free-to-play players. Yeah, true. It wasn't me, by the way. Wasn't me. I didn't do it. I love free-to-play players. Especially those that use my referral link. Yo, let's go. But anyway, that's it, my friends. The DPS tier list is complete. If you liked it, like the video. You should also subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me why Mirage is actually S+ tier or S++ tier. Tell me that. And of course, watch the other tier list, especially the one we're going to do next, which is going to be the speculative tier list. Here we go. Oh yeah, how could I forget? We're going to fix this and edit, though. Fire Wizard is easily the best build. That was confirmed, by the way. It was confirmed on the latest Balance podcast thing with Roy Marks, Trig, and CMC. They mentioned Fire Wizard. You know what's funny? I need to save my VOD because the audio on that stream was destroyed by Roy. He forgot to put the audio in. He tried to put gathering nodes there instead. But the audio on my stream is preserved. So we can all hear Trig talk about the most legendary build in the game. Fire Wizard. But yeah. There you go. Tier list over. Next.